My name is Srishti Hegde. I'm an occupational therapist specialized in mental health. The reason I chose this topic today about doing, being, becoming, belonging, and what is the occupational therapy role in psychosocial rehabilitation is because it's very uncommon to see occupational therapists, even though this has been a profession for really long, it's very uncommon in our country to see occupational therapists work in this area, and there's very little understanding of how can we add to this a healthcare team, what kind of value we can add to this healthcare team. So the reason I chose this topic is to bring about awareness about our role in the psychosocial rehabilitation team, and how this is going to be beneficial for families to know, because a lot of what we do is centered around our activities in everyday life, and a lot of joy comes out of participation, and not participating can bring about the same amount of feeling low or feeling like there's been a setback. So I wanted families to sort of know how is it that they can enhance that sort of participation, who do they seek, what kind of help can they seek, and how we can collaborate to bring about that sort of participation for the individual who is here with us, admitted in under our care. So this has been the reason I chose this topic, and this is exactly what I want families to know: the importance of doing, the importance of participation, what comes in the way of it, and how can we overcome that. So this is Mr. Vinay. He's our counselor, and this is Miss Priya. She's also our counselor. I am Srishti Hegde, and I'm the occupational therapist. And today we are here to talk about the role of occupational therapy in psychosocial rehabilitation. But before we start, I just want to have an understanding of what exactly are you all expecting from our session today, so that if at all that is not being covered, we can tailor it a little bit to your expectations as we go along the session today. So I'll just give the mic to Vinay so he could.
So thank you for your presence. My name is Vinay as a counselor. So what we expect, what about, what do you know about the occupational therapist? We know the occupational therapist influence in adult, aging people, and maybe the school. So there are some barriers to influence. For example, unaware about the occupational therapist, right? So what do you know about occupational therapist? Can you anybody say? They help us in engaging activities. Can you elaborate how they can help them? For example, people have a perception that they can help them to get a job. They lay the foundation, right? Very good. So they checking their abilities. They are just digging their abilities, how they can work on that. For example, they can work in neurological rehabilitation. People who are suffering from maybe traumatic brain injuries, identify their ability, identify their talent, and make them to independent. Okay. Anything else?
From what I understand, as my mother was in occupational therapy, the primary role that she had in the United States was to either reteach or teach people how to function in their daily life, primarily physically, in terms of regular tasks they have to do on a daily basis around the house, but also beyond the house, how to get out of bed, how to walk, how to get onto a bus, how to handle things in the kitchen, how to do the regular occupations of each day.
So this is, I think here is a new, we introduced as a occupational therapist, Mr. Steve. So we had planned, actually, we had a doubt. So, okay, we here, a counselor, we have the, a facility, then psychiatric case manager, clinical psychologist. So MDT, as we can say. So we are all working together, with patients, how make them independent and all. But we thought, how occupational therapist can influence the people, how she can work on that, right? So maybe before the, clear session, we go for some activity. We can say some rituals. Okay, we can play with that. Okay, so I need your cooperation, please.
So let's keep this as a grounding point of our session today, and we will keep going back to this small activity that we did as and when it's appropriate in the slides. Okay, so I'm Srishti. Again, for anyone who's joined late, I'm Srishti. I'm an occupational therapist, and today I'm very passionately going to tell you about what I do in psychosocial rehabilitation. It's not common. Occupational therapy in India is not common. So it's very rare that we find people who are able to describe occupational therapy so well as Sir put it today. And especially in mental health, it's not as common yet. To really see what is the role of an occupational therapist in mental health has not been too common or too commonplace for us. So today, as part of educating our families that visit us here at Karabams, we thought it would be good to talk about what exactly does occupational therapy do for clients who have psychiatric illnesses. Right. So I want to start at a very basic level, and then we will build on that knowledge. Like Saurabh said, foundation. Let's lay the foundation first for today's session. Yeah. Okay. So what is occupation? Right. Anybody here who wants to tell me what they think is an occupation? You're right. You want to share the stage with me, Saurabh? It'll be really good. I think you've got all the answers right today. So activities that we need to do, want to do, and are expected to do are activities that we call as occupations. Why do we call these occupations? Because we occupy time when we do these things. So all of us here, there might not be a single person who's not done an occupation today. Right? We get up in the morning, we brush our teeth. Right from there, we are occupying our time. And the quality of these activities is that it's meaningful and it's purposeful. We always do it because it means something to us. It is personally significant to me that I have fresh breath, right, when I brush my teeth. And it's purposeful with the intent of making sure that I have, good teeth well into my old age, right? So all of us have done occupations, nothing new about them, right? We do it without even acknowledging that this is something so important in our day. So activities that we need to do, these might be things that we have to do on an everyday basis to be healthy, like taking our medication, sleeping on time, eating healthy food, exercising. It could be activities that we want to do. Now, I might want to maybe travel the world. I might want to do photography. I might want to play the piano. Whatever it is that really, sparks that interest in me. And then activities that we are expected to do. Now, a lot of people expect things from us. Our families expect things from us. Maybe our spouse expects something from us. Society in general expects things from us. And those are also things that dictate our routine, right? Okay. So again, what are occupations? Things that occupy our time, which have a meaning and purpose. And the process of doing these things within an environment and along with others is what helps us, become a part of community, and it's an important part of who we are. Now, what is the most basic part of an occupation? It's the verb doing, right? So I want to start from the very, very basic fundamental unit, like we say in physics, what's the fundamental unit of this? The fundamental unit of occupational therapy is the verb doing, us doing things, right? So doing is an essential part of human beings. So as an occupational therapist, throughout my learning, what has been instilled in me is we are occupational beings. We cannot sit down and rest. We have to do things, and that's how we make sense of our day. And even resting, even sleeping is an occupation, right? So it is usually to meet a need that we might have as a human being, basic needs that we have. It could be food, shelter, dressing, or it is often to produce some sort of end product, some sort of productive outcome of our time. How do we justify this time that we have spent? And that is always through doing, right? Doing and not doing are important determinants of well-being or ill health. A lot of times when families come, during admission, one of the things they usually say, my ward is not doing anything in the day, right? I don't see my child do something. I want them to do something productive. I want them to do something with their time. I want them to take care of themselves. All of these things we describe in the form of doing, right? So a lot of times doing is showing us how well adjusted a person is or not, right? An imbalance in doing can be caused due to ill health or can cause ill health. Now, there are two examples. It could be that, the illness symptomology is so much is that it's coming in the way, it's hindering performance, or it could be that not doing, diverting. For example, someone might have a screen addiction which prevents them from eating on time, sleeping on time. So illness itself can prevent doing. So there's a two-way relationship that is there with the doing. Yeah. So if you were to dig deeper into what this doing is, what is doing? What does it look like? What is exactly that we're, calling performance or participation? It is the interaction of three main things, right? So when we can take anything, now I like to call doing as occupational performance, right? Performing in occupation is the doing, right? And that is an interaction of three main things: the person, the skills that they have, the abilities that they have, their body structures, their functions, their cognitive skills, their physical abilities, right? The environment that they're in, right? It could be their physical environment. It could be, what surrounds them, what is accessible, what are the resources, what are the limitations, and their social environment. What kind of teachers does this child have? What kind of colleagues does this person have? What kind of people are they meeting on a daily basis? What kind of friends have they made? And what is the dynamic in this person's family? So all of these things, right, contribute to occupational performance. Thirdly, the occupation itself. Now, when we did an activity, touching back upon what we did, when we did an activity, we broke it down, right? We said, what do we need? So all occupations have a demand, right? All activities have a demand to it, right? Some might need cognitive skills, some might need physical skills, some might need emotional skills like patience, right? So when we did this activity today, some of us were probably more shy than others, right? Maybe some of us were more confident. Some of us are thinking, how long do I have to stand, because I don't want to stand too long, right? Or some of us were probably thinking, what kind of attention, I don't want to get this wrong. This is a simple activity. I don't want to get this wrong. So all of these thoughts without our knowledge are happening during this time, right? So the interaction of the three, the person, their environment, and the occupation that they want to perform is what gives us occupational performance and what we call as doing. Okay, so that brings me to being, right? So what is all this doing? What does it what does it amount to? It amounts to our identity. How do we build identity? By all the things that we do, our experiences, right? All our successes, our failures, the kind of achievements we have in life or not, all of these things amount to an identity formation, right? So doing gives our life meaning. Being is about who we are, and doing tasks is a reflection of this. Now, if I'm someone who's, really environmentally conscious, you will see that in my doing, right? You will see that when I choose a steel straw over a plastic straw, or you might see it when I carry a cloth bag with me instead of a plastic bag. So my values, my moral system, all of these things are reflected in how I behave, what I do, right? So similarly, somebody who has not had this experience of doing, who has not been exposed to doing, or who has hindrance in doing, is going to have a problem with identity formation, to realize who am I. So there might be a role confusion, right? Who am I? What am I? What are some things what are causes that I feel close to, right? So this involves a specific concept we call occupational roles, and that's nothing too major, right? Occupational roles is the roles we do, right? I could be a mother, I could be an employee here in Karabams, I could be a friend, I could be, a teacher, I could be a volunteer on Sundays. So all of these roles that I do dictate my routine, dictate what I do, right? Dictate my activities, right? As a wife, I have to probably cook before I come to work. As an employee, I have to have a specific number of sessions that I do. I might be doing this as part of my job today. So all of these things are dictated by our occupational roles, right? Participating in tasks gives us a chance to be who we are and express that through the tasks we do. So like I said, the example of me being conscious environmentally, all my actions will show that. Every time I'm being a little environmentally conscious, how will you know that? Through my actions, through my doing. Okay. Then it brings me to the next part. So there has to be some scope to achieve a different potential, right? There has to be some amount of metamorphosis, right? We are not the personality we were born with, right? Now that is not always inherited. We also acquire things along the way. So doing is transformative. When we have experiences, when we have successes, when we make good friends, when we do the right things, when we get applauded and validated for that, they have a way to transform our personality and identity, right? So participating in tasks is also important for developing the person we want to be, or want to, the personality we aspire to have. The choices we make, successes we gain, and experiences we have in everyday tasks shape the person we are going to become, and thus making doing transformative. That brings me to the last bit of the doing part before we dive right into what does OT do again in psychosocial rehab, right? Belonging. Yeah. All through our life, we've heard human beings are social beings. It's very important that we have interaction. And every time our clients are here with us, we make it a point to make sure they have enough chances to interact with other people. Right? Why is that? Why is that necessary? Because all of us need a sense of community. Right? And that starts from a very small place. Starts from family. It might be a little bigger. We go to school, we make friends. Right? We might find people who are like-minded. So all of these things are our ways of finding a community, finding people who are like-minded, finding people who might understand us, right? So that's how evolutionarily lots of things have come up, right? Things like, for example, civilizations have come up, communities have come up, religion has come up. So all of this is human beings trying to make sense of finding people they understand, finding people they can share their opinions with, right? So to join with others in tasks or to share the same values fosters a sense of belonging in a group. It is through participation that we establish our place in these communities. This is what we call co-occupation, right? So right now, all of us are in this co-occupation of attending this talk. Right? We have a shared sense of physicality. We're here in Kadabam's Akriti Hall, attending this talk, listening. I'm presenting, you guys are listening. So there's a shared physicality. We are all sharing this time and space at the moment, right? And then there's a shared emotionality, right? You guys are probably here to understand about what is it that this profession can do for my child. That I am here because I am equally passionate to deliver this service for my clients. So there's a shared emotionality, right? And then there's a shared intentionality. You're here to gain knowledge. I'm here to give that knowledge. So we are all co-occupied, right? So that is to say how co-occupations itself have a lot to do with our sense of belonging, our sense of, interacting with people, utilizing our social skills, and all that comes with that. So coming to the whole point of today's talk, what is the role of occupational therapy in psychosocial rehab? So till now that I've been talking, it's not really any different in psychiatry than it is in any other area of specialty. For example, this hindrance in doing can be anywhere. Somebody could have a hindrance in doing because of a stroke. Somebody could have it because of an injury, road traffic accident. Somebody could face obstacles in performance because of, having a developmental delay. Okay. So right from when we're a child to when we're older adults, this hindrance can happen for various reasons. It could be our own reasons. It could be environmental reasons. So this is not something too unique to psychiatry. Occupational therapists work in a lot of different areas. They work in geriatrics, they work in pediatrics, they work in orthopedics, they work in neurology. But today we are here to understand how we work in psychiatry. The working is not different, the goals are different. Right? So occupational therapists thus focus on doing, which is a fundamental part of our everyday life, and we concentrate on ways to facilitate and enhance that participation in all aspects. So to put it simply, like a mathematical equation would look, there's a person, they want to do something. In the middle, there's an obstacle, right? So we're putting our heads collaboratively to look at how do we dissolve this obstacle and make performance possible. Now, this might look different for different clients based on their goals. Right? So if we were to broadly classify occupations into 3 basic categories to make understanding a little easier, there'll be 3 major things. One is self-care. Is the person able to look after themselves, take their medicines, have a bath, maintain hygiene, eat proper meals, have exercise, sleep, rest adequately? That's 1. 2, productive occupations. Are they able to join some sort of formal work? Are they able to work with their colleagues? Are they able to participate in education? Are they able to volunteer? What is it that they want to do in that sphere? Anyone here is finding it difficult to follow because of language? Hindi? Hindi, yes, good. Yes. So ಇಲ್ಲಿವರೆಗೂ ನಾವು ಮಾತಾಡಿರೋದು ಜಸ್ಟ್ ಜನರಲಿ ಹೌ ನಾವು ಎವ್ರಿ ಡೇ ಕೆಲಸ ಮಾಡ್ತೀವಲ್ಲ, ಏನಾದರೂ ಕೆಲಸ ಇರ್ಬೋದು, ನಾವು ಬ್ರಷ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಇರ್ಬೋದು, ಕೆಲಸಕ್ಕೆ ಹೋಗ್ತಾ ಇರ್ಬೋದು, ಎಲ್ಲ ಸಣ್ಣ ಸಣ್ಣ ಕೆಲಸಗಳು, ಹೌ ಆರ್ ದೇ ರೆಲೆವೆಂಟ್ ಇನ್ ಮೇಕಿಂಗ್ ಐಡೆಂಟಿಟಿ. ಒಂದು ಪರ್ಸನ್ನಿನ ಸ್ವಭಾವ ಹೇಗೆ ಇನ್ಫ್ಲೂಯೆನ್ಸ್ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ ಆ ಐಡೆಂಟಿಟಿ ಫಾರ್ಮೇಷನಲ್ಲಿ, ಆ ಟ್ರಾನ್ಸ್ಫಾರ್ಮೇಷನಲ್ಲಿ, ಓಕೆ, ಆ್ಯಂಡ್ ಆ ಕಮ್ಯುನಿಟಿಯಲ್ಲಿ ಎಲ್ಲರ ಜೊತೆ बेरकोंडु इरोद्रल्ली हेगे दिस प्लेज अ पार्ट. दैट इज़ व्हाट वी हैव लुक्ड एट सो फार. सो अगर मैं हिंदी में बताना चाहूँ तो हम जस्ट देख रहे हैं कि ये जो छोटे छोटे हम काम करते हैं दिन में, जैसे हम सेल्फ केयर करते हैं, हमारा हाइजीन करते हैं, हम कोई प्रोडक्टिव काम करते हैं जिसका एक आउटकम होता है, या कोई हम लीजर एक्टिविटी करते हैं, रिलैक्सिंग एक्टिविटी करते हैं, ये सब हमारे आइडेंटिटी फॉर्मेशन में, हमारे ट्रांसफॉर्मेशन में, हमारे कम्युनिटी में मिंगल होने में ये कैसे प्ले करता है. ये एक फंडामेंटल चीज़ है हर चीज़ में. जैसे आप किसी और के साथ मिंगल कर रहे हैं, कहीं और जा रहे हैं, कम्युनिटी में पार्टिसिपेट कर रहे हैं, उसमें भी अगर आप देखें तो थिंग इज़ पार्टिसिपेशन, राइट. अगर हम आइडेंटिटी फॉर्मेशन की बात करें, अगर हम बोल रहे हैं कि दिस पर्सन इज़ वर्किंग हार्ड टू फिगर आउट हु दे आर, तो उसमें भी इट बॉइल्स डाउन टू काम क्या कर रहे हैं, हाउ आर दे कीपिंग देमसेल्फ ऑक्यूपाइड, समय का कैसे उपयोग कर रहे हैं, राइट. तो अभी हम कर रहे हैं ऑक्यूपेशनल थेरेपी का इसमें क्या रोल है. तो वी आर एक्सपर्ट्स इन द डूइंग, राइट. सो वी आर लुकिंग एट what exactly can be made possible in terms of participation. So we were talking about the different areas. We covered 2. The last one is relaxing activities. What is it? Leisure participation, social interaction, making friends, having hobbies. All of these things are equally important because this is what adds that flair to your personality, right? That's what makes us a little different. Now, all of us brush our teeth, but we're all probably brush in a different way, right? Some people might roll our toothpaste. Some people might squeeze it in the middle. Some people might want to gargle with drinking water only. Some people really don't mind, right? So all of us have those little quirks to how we perform, and that is very important to an occupational therapist because that is what customizes this occupation. That's what makes this occupation very close to that person and how that is meaningful to them, right? So coming back to this image, if you know, in a few slides away we had put this image. That was to understand what occupational performance is. So मैं बता रही थी कि ये जो हम बोल रहे हैं काम करना, occupational performance, इसका what is it exactly? तो it's an interaction of these 3 things. Person के skills जो होते हैं वो, जो abilities होते हैं, cognitive skills होते हैं, physical abilities होते हैं वो, environment, उनके आसपास कैसे तरह के लोग हैं, स्कूल में कैसे लोग हैं, काम पे कैसे लोग हैं, फैमिली का डायनामिक्स क्या है, राइट. एंड वो क्या काम करना चाहते हैं और उसका डिमांड क्या है. फॉर एग्जांपल हम ले सकते हैं ग्रॉसरी शॉपिंग, जैसे शॉप जाके कुछ खरीद के लाना, तो उसमें कोई बहुत स्किल्स इन्वॉल्व होते हैं. इट माइट रिक्वायर सोशल इंटरेक्शन, कैशियर से बात करना पड़ता है. इट कुड बी बजटिंग कि कितना पैसा खर्च करूं. इट कुड बी ऑर्गेनाइजिंग कि घर पे क्या ख़त्म हो गया है, मैं क्या लाना चाहता हूं, कितना क्वांटिटी में लाना है. सो ऑल ऑफ दीज थिंग्स, ऑक्यूपेशन, पर्सन स्किल्स एंड एनवायरनमेंट, इनका इंटरेक्शन होता है ऑक्यूपेशनल परफॉर्मेंस, राइट. सो अभी ऑक्यूपेशनल थेरेपी क्या करेगा, इसमें हम पर्सन के स्किल्स पे काम कर सकते हैं. वी कैन वर्क ऑन द स्किल्स, वी कैन बिल्ड द स्किल्स इफ द स्किल्स आर नॉट देयर, राइट. We can work on modifying the environment physically or socially, right? That's what family education comes over here. Teaching parents what kind of parenting is useful with their children, that comes over here. It could be advocating with teachers to identify what difficulty the child has, right? All these different things might come in environmental modification. And the last thing, occupation को ही modify कर सकते हैं. We can modify the occupations, make it easier for the person, right? So these are the ways in which occupational therapy can make occupational performance, which is the participation of the individual, possible, right? So where appropriate, OTs will obviously collaborate. हम अलग से काम नहीं करेंगे, हम टीम में काम करेंगे. डॉक्टर्स का एक रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी होता है, मेडिकेशंस प्रिस्क्राइब करते हैं, वो सिम्टम्स में डीपली जाते हैं. क्लिनिकल साइकोलॉजिस्ट अपना रोल करते हैं, थॉट्स के बारे में, उनके इमोशंस के बारे में, उनको देयर माइट बी डिफरेंट अप्रोचेस दैट दे यूज़ फॉर दिस सेम थिंग. काउंसलर्स उनकी तरफ से काम करते हैं, और हमारा ये रोल होता है कि पार्टिसिपेशन को कैसे एनेबल करें. सो we might know, right? Different professions have their own ways of working. Now we call them tools. Now if a plumber comes to your house, he's going to come with a spanner, he's going to come with some, plier. Electrician comes, carpenter comes, IT people have their computers, coding, software, all of that. So for me as an occupational therapist, the occupations, activities itself are a modality of change, right? मैं occupations को ही मेरा tool बना के use करूँगी, और occupations ही मेरे goals है. तो ये कैसे करते हैं हम? The therapeutic use of occupations to facilitate change in an individual's skills, performance components, and physical, cognitive, or psychosocial skills. तो how do I use occupations therapeutically? Right? Example है इधर. For example, broadly we want to work on somebody's social skills. I might do many things. Here in Cardaboms, my usual thing is, let's play cards, caroms, right? And someone might be like, why are you playing with my child? How is this going to work on social skills? Because the activity itself takes away the pressure of social interaction. Through activity, they make friends. They start talking about their everyday, activities. They might talk about their hobbies. They might talk about something else, about their home, what really interests them. So this is how, in practice, they learn about social interaction. And then we do a feedback. Then we do, what kind of strategies can you use? What can you change about the way you talk? What can you do differently next time? Right? So I could be using playing cards, which is an activity, and something else. For example, it could be playing sports, grocery shopping, which requires interaction, or anything else that requires interaction, in order to develop social skills, which is my broad goal, right? Now, we are hoping that the client is able to generalize. In this example, we're hoping that this client is having the ability to generalize these skills from all these activities, and in turn, their social participation becomes better, right? So it is the process of using activity itself to remediate the deficits, which is why it's called occupation as means. That's the tool, right? The next one is occupation as ends. इसका मतलब ये होता है कि गोल ही ऑक्यूपेशन करना है. फॉर एग्जाम्पल, एक पर्सन आया है, उनको ग्रॉसरी शॉपिंग ही कराना है क्योंकि वो इंडिपेंडेंटली रहना चाहते हैं. दे डोंट वांट टू डिपेंड ऑन एनीबॉडी टू डू दिस शॉपिंग फॉर देम. So I'm going to start with multiple things that might be having no relation with grocery shopping. I might maybe make them do some budgeting on the side, some maths on the side. I might be able to, work on organizing. I might be able to say, how am I going to look for things in a shop, sorting, matching, those kind of things. And then I might come to social interaction as well. How am I going to talk to a cashier? How am I going to negotiate? How am I going to bargain? So all of these things will be worked upon, and that goal is grocery shopping. Take them out on a grocery shopping event, do it in practice, give feedback, on spot, debrief after, right? So all of these ways in which the occupation itself is the goal, right? When they're leaving my office, eventually, after a few sessions, after a few months, they should be able to do grocery shopping. Now, what are some occupational therapy assessments? Right? All professions have their own way of assessing. But what does occupational therapy assess? We are assessing that obstacle in the path. What is this speed breaker which is not allowing my patient to cross? What is this thing in the middle that is not allowing my patient to participate? So, how do we do that? There are standardized tests which have normative data. बहुत research हुआ होता है इसमें, which they say कि, normally these are the scores someone should have. So this is called standardized. Usme there will be rules. How do I conduct this assessment? What time of the day I conduct it? How many people should I observe? Should the patient tell me on their own what are their observations? So this is a very standardized way to go about it. Then there are also non-standardized tests, and these are mostly based on observation. For example, we call them functional analysis. For example, I might take them out with me to grocery shop. And I might say, okay, let's go ahead, let's buy some things. And then I notice, what is this person not able to do? what are some safety concerns. They might not be checking while crossing the road. They might not be able to remember 10 out of 20 items to buy. They might have difficulty handling the change. They might have some anxiety with the cashier. So all of these things are my observations in that occupation, what this person is not able to do. And then we start working on what is the priority-wise, what should I address first. So those are non-standardized or functional assessments. So examples of standardized assessments would be the Canadian Occupational Performance Measure, which looks at what is my priority in terms of occupation, how am I performing them, what is my satisfaction, how do I improve it. So usually we use this for a pre-post kind of scenario. It could be a sensory profile. You might all be aware that a lot of adults and children on the spectrum have sensory issues. Now what are sensory issues? It might be to regulate the sensory inputs that we're getting around us. So there is a measure to check how are these sensory things bothering them. It could be an independence measure. It could be role and interest checklist, because we said occupation has to be meaningful. You know, just because I like playing badminton doesn't mean you like playing badminton, and I cannot enforce that on you. That's not going to be useful, because the person, if they don't have the interest to do it, they will not do it, right? And then there's also assessment of communication and interaction skills. This is not an exhaustive list, it's just examples. Right. So for the benefit of this talk, I have used this paper, this research paper, which is a literature review, which has summarized 50 odd full articles, research papers, for us to understand what are some interventions that are there in occupational therapy. So one of them is supported employment and education. So there are two ways to look at how do we employ someone, right? Either there's train and place, or there's place and train. So research says that place and train is a much more satisfactory and much more potent way of doing this, because you already have put someone in the scenario of, you know, working. They already have the incentive of earning. They have an incentive of having a workplace. The entire the concept of being employed itself is already there. IPS, which is the individual placement and support, it's been done abroad and also in India. Supported education is similar to this. तो क्या करते हैं, ऐसे नहीं वेट करते कि बच्चा स्किल्स सीख के फिर स्कूल जाएगा. हम ऑलरेडी बच्चे को स्कूल या रिलेटेड एजुकेशनल प्रोग्राम्स में डालते हैं, और उनको उसमें क्या प्रॉब्लम हो रहा है, साइड बाय साइड वी आर गोना डील विद इट, इंस्टेड ऑफ वेटिंग द पर्सन टू बी परफेक्ट एट समथिंग एंड देन, you know, start off with that project, because that sense of perfection, it doesn't exist. We cannot keep waiting for the person to develop a sort of skill and then, you know, move on, get employed, get educated. Then the use of creative occupations and activity-based groups. So we might be using, say, drama for artistic expression, or art for emotional expression, or social skills. We might be using gardening or, you know, music as a form of, you know, relaxing. It could be that, you know, we've started some sort of collage making to just, you know, spend time with friends or relax, or, you know, take your mind off the stress reduction, we might call it, right? So using varied creative occupation with an entirely different goal of maybe reducing stress, or it could be social skills building. So I don't want to put anybody on spot, but right now we've tried this new thing where we've added a few more activities in our, you know, schedule for our patients. And one of that is something called as Connection Crew, where we do social skills training. And this is, my strict rule in this group is no books and pens. Don't bring, we're not making notes, we're not going to write down anything. This is not a class. We're going to be practicing, we're going to be doing role plays, we're going to, you know, maybe share a joke here and there, and that's how we're going to get to practice social skills in person. Right? Yes. The next intervention area is time use and occupational balance. So a lot of times, like I said, imbalance in activities can cause illness, or the illness can cause imbalance in activities. So to look at how is time spent in the day, right? And now something to be paying attention to here is this is not a mathematical balance. I can't say 24 hours, 8 hours of this, 8 hours. It's very nice to say on paper, but how many of us can really do it? So this is supposed to be a subjective perception of the person. do I feel like my day is balanced, right? And am I able to justify that balance? And at the end of the day, is this affecting my quality of life positively or negatively? So occupational balance refers to an individual's subjective perception of having the right amount of a variety of meaningful daily activities such as self-care, work, rest, and leisure. This promotes health and well-being, and it involves managing life's demands while maintaining satisfaction and lowering our stress. Right. There are other intervention goals. It could be specific skill building. Now, for example, somebody has already identified this is the kind of job they want to go to. There might be certain, skill deficits related to that. So looking at skill building, habit training, right? It could be that somebody has a screen addiction. We're going to distract them from this, get them to do something more meaningful, take care of themselves, bring them to eat their own meals, maybe make their own meals, right? It could be home management tasks. It could be anything. Lifestyle modification, I think this is the need of the hour. A lot of us are addicted to screens. A lot of us might be gaining weight because of the kind of food we're eating. So how are we, through occupations, going to get that change in lifestyle? Emotional regulation, healthy expression of emotions, using an emotional vocabulary, being able to differentiate between feeling hungry, feeling angry, feeling sad. What am I feeling? Why am I binge eating? Right? Social interaction, independent living. Now, it's very uncommon in India for somebody to choose just to stay by myself, but it is important. Independent living skills are important because someone should know financial management, someone should know meal prep, how do I take care of my laundry, how do I pay my bills. So all of these things might be part of their independent living goals. Advocacy. A lot of times we have been working on the person, we've been working on the occupation, but the problem doesn't go away. Why? Because society doesn't understand how do I inclusively make this participation possible, right? So advocacy is a very major and something I feel very passionately about. A lot of times in my experience, we've written letters to institutions to make some necessary concessions. Just to give an example, for a client who had adult attention deficit, she's a very good student, scholarly at that. She's not able to pay attention in a 2-hour-long class. Now, how can we blame her? I can't pay attention for longer than 30 minutes. I can't blame my patient, right? I've been working on giving her strategies to study. I've been, working on the study aspect. I've been trying to help her break down, chunk her material, learn better, practice Pomodoro, all of that, yes. But then again, I thought, we need to write a letter to this institution so that she can start either accessing separate notes or she can start recording these classes so that she can take notes later, right? So when appropriate, advocacy might be something that also needs to be looked at. And basically, in the end, quality of life. Is this person satisfied with the kind of life they're living? Because we have here met as family support group, I want to also shed some light on how we're being family-centered. All these goals that I've spoken about usually are family-centered in the sense that they're collaboratively made. It's not just about what the patient wants. It's not about what I want my patient to do. There's no protocol in occupational therapy. You can't say, this person has this illness, A, and this person also has A, so we're going to apply the same logic. No. This person comes with their own set of experiences, interests, values. This person has a completely different range of interests, values, meaning. So collaborative goal setting is very important. What does my family, what do I collaboratively want? Environmental modifications. Family has to support us with respect to this, understanding how certain behaviors of the family itself could be triggering sometimes. How are the dynamics important? This especially comes with parenting, right? We talk about good cop, bad cop. How do we change that dynamic, right? Family, education, and support. If family is able to understand what exactly is going wrong in this illness journey with respect to participation, getting the person to participate becomes much easier, right? It could be, for example, a lot of times I meet parents who say, I've been telling my son or daughter that, ma'am has given this routine you have to follow. right? We're no longer in school. That approach doesn't work, right? I rather have parents say, I'm going out for a walk, come with me, right? Let me do this halfway with you. Let me share this burden with you. This is not yet your goal, this is our goal, right? So, sort of improving that sort of communication within the family. I'm not saying in any way that is easy. We're always here to support you guys with that and establishing a routine. Recently, we had a family who had brought their child with addiction to screens. And something I told the father was, we can't expect him to understand how long to not spend on the screen because we are all addicted to screen. So this is a family goal. We'll all shut off TV by a certain time. No phones before bedtime, no TV before bedtime. And this is something all of us have to strictly follow, right? So that shared sense of established routine, co-occupation, really spending that time, doing those activities meaningfully with your ward and, having a discussion about it. How did I feel sharing this space with you? How did I feel going for that early morning walk with you? I really felt proud that we were able to share this time, So that is very important to us in OT. Coming back to this thing that we did earlier, which was understanding from you guys what OT is. We just want to do this again. There's a QR code. You can scan it if you all have internet and put in whatever words you have about occupational therapy onto that, and that's going to make a word cloud, okay? And we're going to see how that word cloud looks. Thank you for your time and patience and undeterred attention. I'm just going to give the mic over to Vinay for a bit so that I can arrange to look at the word cloud.
Sir, he doesn't know how to manage money. So he earns a lot, but he spends a lot. So recently he got discharged, I think 2 months back. So I met her personally. Then I said, ma'am, this is a concern from family. So what we did, what we can do. So she worked with them. Right now, actually, as per the family feedback, actually, they are happy. He is now going for work and managing financial, right? So this is the feedback actually we are getting from the family that they are happy with the occupational therapist. She help him that how he can manage the financial things. Okay.
Yeah, just to answer your question, ma'am. First, when the goal is that we want the client to be able to, have that social interaction, it's not that immediately we can take them shopping because there's some restrictions. But what we try is to simulate that. It could be that there was first level a role play. We could maybe try to simulate that in our environment over here. We have some small shops that are around here that are safe to take the client. So we might not be able to go to Forum, but we might be able to take them to a small shop, practice that and come. So as I have also joined newly, there have been very few opportunities right now to have done that, but there's nothing against practicing these skills, right? So if you say, have you done it in Kadabams? Not yet, but that scope is always there. But that has to be tailor-made for the client. So I would not say first we will take them out. No, that's never the option. First, do things what we can inside. Then it could also be that in post-care, we start looking at, what is it that we can do with respect to actual context participation.
I would like to take a moment and express the gratitude. First and foremost, I would like to thank our occupational therapist, Ms. Srishti, for guiding us with patience, compassion, and understanding. And also, I take heartfelt thanks to all the families who openly participated